super excited for our conversation today. I have Laura Major joining me out of our Ankeny office, and we're going to dig into what we get super excited about, some SOPs, some standard operating procedures, which we kind of label in our world as the system. So thanks for joining me and nerding out a little bit, talking with me about your SOPs.
Excited to nerd out about SOPs. I am so in love with them, and I feel like we might be the oddballs out in this group. I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm so excited about this conversation with you because I know you've very intentionally worked on these. And again, we're kind of nerdy about this. But what we've realized, right, through our conversations of our survival to significance journeys is that there are four: leads, teams, systems, and money. Systems do require work so that, right, we can go along that journey and not just still always be in survival mode. So we're going to spend most of our time kind of talking. I relate this to those of you who have the systems journey in front of you. Laura's really probably more in transition too. She's done a pretty good job of really like the foundational systems and starting to run her business like a business. And without her even maybe realizing, what she's really been building out that I got to take a peek at is really creating those three pillars, the next three departments of her business. And she's really working on writing these processes out, getting them down, because we want to get to that place where your business maybe runs when you can't, right? Like that's the whole idea behind all of this. So again, thanks for being here. Thanks for nerding out with me. And we're going to spend a little time digging into some of the ones that you've been working on.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Okay. So give me a little bit of background though, other than we're just a little bit nerdy, you and I.
Mhm.
What really started this for you? Where was your like, oh, okay, this is the time I need to start doing these things? When was that for you?
Yeah. I think it was a roundtable, and Yvonne Arnold came and
Yeah.
and spoke, and she is all about SOPs. Like that is her shtick. And I had been thinking about it. It had definitely been in my mind. I come from a science background, like medical laboratories and SOPs are how they function. So, a binder, like literally filled with every process, is my love language. So
Oh,
it had been percolating, and I think just seeing Yvonne Arnold like face to face and having her lay it out, like how essential they are to run a smooth business, was like the kick I needed to start putting in the effort, because it definitely does take effort to
yes.
get it all codified. You might think that you know what you do, but when you start putting it in SOP form, and actually writing it down, you do start to question, like, could I do that better? Should I change that?
Ooh, I like
Should I
that.
change it now? That sort of thing. Like just all putting it down. It is work, and it's time and effort for sure.
Right, and I think the other part of that too, that is it's written, right? I mean, so like I like how you said a lot of people are like, yeah, I have a process for that or I have a system for that, but it's up here, it's in our head. It's not in a place where someone else maybe potentially and the point of systems isn't always so that someone else can take it over, but the idea is someone else could, right?
Hmm.
And so if it's not written down, it's really not a thing. But I love that you just said, that's kind of where I'm going next. How has this helped you? So I love that you just said it helps you think through the process even more to go, ooh, how could I do that even better? Which I love. How else has it helped you just getting these things out of your head and on paper?
Yeah. Well, it empties your head. You don't have to
Yeah,
constantly
yeah.
be thinking about it. Like, you get it out of there, and then you can actually focus on the things. I mean, I think that that's a huge step. It also has been helping me think about where I want to take my business. Some of my SOPs are color coded, and there's some pink lines, because I know if it's pink, that's what I eventually would love to outsource to, maybe like
Ooh,
a personal
love
assistant,
that.
or like personal TC, maybe it dreams and things, right? But
Yeah,
writing it all down, I can see where I can start to define the $20 an hour work versus
yes.
the $200 an hour work. And if as I'm typing it out, that's like, yeah, that's a 15 to $20 an hour job. I turn it pink, because eventually
Yeah.
I'd love to not do those things anymore,
And
right?
how
Like hand that
beautiful is
over.
that to already go, "Okay, I already have a list going. If I were to bring somebody on who I want to start doing these activities for me, I already have the list." And they'll
Hmm.
get to already see, like, where it falls in the process, like, here's where your part is and how it helps. I mean,
Mhm.
leaps and bounds, right? I mean,
And they can
I feel like
see the
that's
whole
number one.
system, yeah, and they can see it all
Yeah,
there, and, um, depending on how much effort I've put into the SOP, some of them are as menial as, like, go to this website,
right.
click the 3rd button on the right, like, some of them are because I was like, "If I wanna hand this off, I wanna be like, 'Here you go. This is
Yeah,
how
I
you
would
do
say
it.'"
that's probably the number one thing that I mean, that realtors do struggle with when hiring admin. It's just like, what do I have them do? I was like, well, because they don't have anything written down or these standard operating
Mhm.
procedures or these processes and things like that written down. So, so good. We're going to kind of come back to like what's next at the end for you because it
Okay.
sounds like
Oh,
there's
cool.
some more things obviously you're doing to work on. But let's just I want to give an overview of some of
Mhm.
the ones that you've done so people can kind of start brainstorming and dreaming about where they could start, right? With this.
Wow.
So, you have a few buyer specific things that you've really written down, have the standard operating procedure for your buyer consultation, your buyer journey from signed agency to closing. I love that that was the header of that. And the buyer post closing plan. So, if I'm tying this back to our journey, these things are in the foundational space, but you have really started to build what I see as your transactions pillar, this transaction management team, because you know how to work with buyers from beginning to end and after. So that's kind of all in that transaction pillar. So just in general, give me which one did you start with and which one of those three has been maybe the most helpful?
Yeah, so I think my buyer pillar has the most built out because I've done the most buy side transactions at this point.
Right.
And so it made sense to kind of start there and start codifying that and working with it.
Start with what you know.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and for me, I would say the one that really was the easiest to build out was the from signed agency to closing, kind of working in the transaction.
Love it.
Um, because there's big ticket items where you can start, like if you're writing something out, there's big things that you know that you have to hit, right? Like submit loop, get
Yes.
paperwork signed, then we're doing inspection, and there's a flow to it that's
Yeah.
easy to harness and customize and make your own. So
Good.
and I mean, full disclosure, I stole yours that lives in the Google Drive, right? Like you've got a buyer process there, and I started with that, and then I started
Nice
taking things out and adding other things in. Um, but that one was just an easy
place to
win, like
start.
a quick,
Yeah.
easy, like this is something that I can easily get down, feel like, yep, that system is set, and then start building in other directions, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
now how do we get that signed buyer,
Yes.
and then work that process. So
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
so,
the
and like
sweet
you
spot
said,
that
just
I
getting
went
it
to.
down, like copy from others or just get it
Mhm,
all down right. And then I love okay, now that I know what I do, I could make this email template even better because I've run into
mhm.
this scenario over and over and over again. And this is something I want to add to that. But if we don't have it written, right? Like, how can we continue to improve, right? And make
Yeah,
it even better? So, how is the buyer section as a whole really helped your relationships with your buyer clients?
yeah. Um, so on the tail end of the buyer section, I do have the follow-up plan in place for that. And for me, it's a lot of peace of mind knowing that no one's going to get lost after the fact.
Yeah.
Um, I can stay in touch with them. But I am so, so, so excited. I mean, we're 2 months into the year, and this year is the first year that I think I have my fully codified, like from signed agency to closing. And it's a 6-step process, kind of when we talk about creating extraordinary experiences and things like that.
Mhm.
There's 6 touch points where I've got gifts prepackaged. And while they're prepackaged, I think that they still come off as personal because most of them include a little handwritten note to
Yeah.
where it's, we know that this is like a pain point in the process, or we know that this is, something that once you hit it, like you want to celebrate that. And so to just be prepared to immediately recognize and kind of like make that moment shine. Very excited to be having that an easy flow so far this year. Yeah.
That's so fun, and I think you're right, I think of the book Power of Moments, I think of our how we coach through extraordinary client experience, like, you're harnessing all of these amazing things that you can be doing in that journey because you've taken the time to write it down and think through it and then improve upon that, and I wanna go back to something you just said as well. It's taken me this is the first full year that I'll have this group in place, right? So that's important to point out too, right? Like, so if this idea came to you when Yvonne was here, that was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how much time you've been working on building this, right?
Yep, yep. So it's been a process, because you kind of start and you're like, I want to do it all at once, and then you're overwhelmed, so you crash and burn a little bit. But then you come back to it, and it, I mean, takes time, and there's still things that I need to get written down and stuff, but the ones that are written are making operating smoother and easier, which frees up the time to go back and do the processes for other things that still need attention.
Yeah, and frees up your brain space, I think, too, to with your clients, that relationship, that extraordinary client experience, right? You have a plan, right? Like, I've got
Mhm.
this, and you can really spend your time focusing on them and the relationship more on the things that you might be missing in the process.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
It's nice.
Yeah, I'm so
I
excited.
think
I can't wait to
yeah,
hear
I
how the
do
year
Tom
goes,
Ferry
right?
coaching, and he's got this visual of, like most agents' brains, and it's like just this scribble cloud, right? But then it's like, Tom Ferry agents, and it's like a circle, right? Like, and
Yep.
you just repeat, like, get your processes down, and you can increase your effectiveness. Um,
Yes.
and I'm finding it very true, very, very true. So,
I'm so excited to hear how this first year of that in play goes, like how
mhm,
that's gonna feel when you're done. I love that for you. So another thing that you worked on really is in then the leads pillar, which I love. That's a space that you've honed in on. And this one's interesting to me because I know a little bit more of the history of the transition of your business, but I love that this one was one you wrote down. Converting a cold lead was specifically a process that you took the time to write out. So this was really fun. So um, why that process? Why was that the thing in leads that you wanted to write out first?
yeah, that one needed to be written out because I needed to be effective in that space. Because if I was paying for a lead, I didn't want it to just disappear or get lost. I needed to have
Yeah,
a way to not only just capture a lead and have that, first conversation. Most of the leads that I connect is a live phone call, but that live phone call had to go somewhere. So there needed to be a process,
yeah.
to stay in touch with them and, um, make sure that it wasn't just dollars down the drain, right? So that was a
Mhm.
process that needed to be in place and be in place quickly. And, um, that one involved like some tools, um, MailChimp and, Follow Up
Yeah,
Boss, and just
yeah.
tools to make it happen. But, um, yeah, so then actually getting that in place and making all of the systems like come together, that was just very important to make sure that those dollars weren't going down the drain.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it, right? Like if I'm going to pay for this, I need to make sure I can convert and I have a process and a plan for that conversion because it doesn't always happen day one, right?
Mhm.
So you have to have a plan. And so spend a little more time for me on the, you said follow up boss MailChimp. That to me is like more the incubation plan to keep these people top of mind as you go when you don't necessarily convert them right away that day one, that
Mhm.
phone call. So just a little bit more. We don't need to get super detailed on, but on the incubation plan a little bit.
Yeah. So there's a number out there. I think the number is 18, right? You have to like touch someone 18 times before they, might actually do something. And so, to me, it was about making an 18 touch point plan.
Yeah,
Um, and it's 18 touch points within 3 months. Like it's kind of a lot. And then, that's still not the end. Um,
right.
there's a it's a full year long plan. Actually, it's really heavy the first 3 months. It does taper months 4 through 12, and then months 12 to forever is a much
Yeah.
more pulled back version. But,
Yeah.
until they hit unsubscribe, it continues, right? Like, just
Which is
can't
which
just
is
let it go,
good.
Yeah.
I like the thought of heavy up front, slightly tapered back for the next 9 months, and then they still don't go away. This is the thing that I feel like people aren't great at sometimes is then the continued incubation because sometimes people aren't ready. They're not ignoring you, they're not bad people. They're just not ready yet. So to
Hmm.
even be an option, they have to be incubated, right? And over time. And you can taper that. It can look different at different stages. But I love that you've thought through that. And I love the 18 touch points, right? Like that was the goal. That was the number you heard. And you're like, okay, this is what I have to come up with. Give me an example, just one other than my favorite. Obviously, buyers want to buy a house. So usually I'm trying to send them houses. But give
Hmm.
me one example of one of the like the 18 touch points as far as something else besides sending them a house.
I have one of my automated emails that goes out is kind of IFA heavy. So my e-leads are that I get are in Des Moines, excuse me, tend to be lower price point, like need that assistance. And so one of the emails is it's got a link to the IFA site, and but it'll capture and say like, "Do you need more money before you can buy?" I think is the subject line, right? Because who doesn't?
Yeah.
It'll say, this is one of my favorite programs. It can offer this and this. And if you think it's a program that you're interested in, like give me a call and we can talk about which lenders offer that program, facilitate it, and what it might look like for you, right? So it's got a link. They could explore more, or
Yeah.
they could give me a call and we could talk about it.
Yeah, I love that. That is highly valuable, and I love that, like, do you need more money in order to buy? Like, that's a good way to draw people in, and it's intriguing, and it leads them to more information, and that is especially I mean, I'm a huge advocate of that program, so, like, that is hugely valuable for so many people. So good. Thanks for sharing that one. That's really good. All right. So then we have the leads management department that you've started building out. We have the transaction management that probably has the most built out so far. But I love that you said start with something that you already know the buyer process, just like from signed agency through, which is great. And then you do have some things that you started working on in the marketing department, right? This third pillar of this second transition of systems from stability to success. So the one that you wrote down, which connects perfectly to what we just talked about 2 weeks ago in Reconnect, is listing marketing. So, just how has this listing marketing plan helped you as a listing agent to have this process?
It helps me sleep at night.
Yes,
Now that I've
good.
started getting more listings, um, I found myself trying to sleep at night and going, "Did I do enough today to say that I did something for them?" Right? Like, did
That's
I
so
do enough?
good.
And and I would just kind of lay there at night and be like, "Well, okay, and then I have to brain dump into my phone and do this tomorrow, or whatever, so that I can go to sleep
Yep.
and feel like I'm serving my listing clients."
Good.
And so that was um, definitely the impetus to codifying the listing marketing plan was by making it and creating it, with just different touch points that I knew that needed to happen and different strategies to work and things like that. I knew if I was executing on the plan, I never needed to ask myself, have I done enough for this
Oh,
listing
that's
as I was trying to sleep at night? So um, it was purely selfish to get it codified and written down. Purely
it's
selfish.
not. Which is funny you say that because your whole thought process behind that was not selfish, it was service to your people. And I am honored they chose me. I have told that I'm going to work for them, and the marketing plan and the communication plan is so essential to that service, right? So I love that that's the heart. That's not selfish at all. I'm letting you off the hook. You started with the word service. That is not selfish at all, but I'm glad you can sleep at night. That does make you a better human being.
Yeah, yeah, it
Uh,
makes me feel a lot better too.
Right? Exactly. So getting that stuff down just helps again. And you said it does include like some of the commute, like this is how I check in and this is what I do. You had it written down pre things, day of, and then ongoing. So really just thinking about the stages of it. And as you're getting more listings and as listings, we actually get to utilize the ongoing even more in this market typically. How is just that freed up your time, space, energy, or thought processes there as far as the ongoing after the pre and the day of? I feel like those are easier-ish,
Those
but
are
coming up with
easier
the
because they've
ongoing,
got
yeah.
very clear measurements and very clear things that need to happen and be communicated in
Mhm.
those days. Um, yeah, so having the ongoing plan is nice because it does set expectations with the sellers. And so my listing plan is kind of a 4 week cycle on repeat. Um, Hopefully, we don't have to repeat too many cycles, but
Yep.
um, there are specific targets that my clients then know that we're going to be planning to do, whether that's an open house or whether it's um, me telling them how many phone calls I made on a specific like reverse prospecting kind of campaign. Um, and then we do have like built-in price reductions or at least built-in times to have a conversation about price reduction and kind of how that's going to shape up and go. So there's built-in weekly kind of big target items
Yep.
for marketing thing anyway to build in the weekly touch points. If the like showings and that sort of feedback isn't necessarily happening, right?
Yeah.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Good. And I like that you said it's a kind of a 4-week plan on repeat if it needs to be. It doesn't have to be something super magic wand extravagant. It just needs to be a plan that you can stick
Mhm.
with. And I like that you said expectations too, right? It sets the proper expectations for yourself and for your sellers along the way. So what's next for you, right? So you've worked so hard over the last couple years on these systems, these processes. What is the big ticket 2025 up next for Laura this year to feel like you're moving forward in this space?
Yeah. So this year, my goal for listings was 9, which will be the most listings I've ever had. If I can make it happen, and I intend to make it happen.
Yep,
But so this year is definitely about refining that listings marketing system,
got it.
um, and that plan. I think because it takes the time and the experience to really refine the plans, and so listings are my big push this year. I do still intend to
Right,
be more buyer heavy, but to get 9 listings and refine that plan. Very excited this year about my 3 client events. The first one's coming up in just 2 months.
yeah,
Um, so those are codified. You didn't get a copy of those SOPs, not because I didn't want you to see them. I just those aren't printed. Um,
yeah. No, I got
this
it.
year, I'm excited. Like those 3 events are codified and they're planned, and so they should be able to be executed with minimal like craziness.
Right,
Really
that's
looking
so
forward to
good.
that. And then there's a chance that personal assistant, personal transaction coordinator, it might happen this year. It was not on my bingo card for this year. However, sometimes life happens and opportunities present themselves.
Yep.
Um, so that is
What
in
2025
the
look like.
works, maybe. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Conversations are happening for sure on that one. Yeah.
Good. I love that. Well, I mean, truly, great job. Thanks for your time and your expertise on this. But honestly, I just love that you have intentionally spent time building out these processes and systems so that even if this person comes or doesn't come, you really are moving to that success stage in your business, in your systems, where your business could get to a point of running without you. Like you're so in that run your business like a business, working on those 3 foundational pillars, and I know you're good at your business planning. Like I know you do some really thoughtful strategic business planning, kind of the foundation of all these pillars as well. But I just say keep going, right? Like you were really getting to a place working in and on your business where you're going to be able to potentially step away and have somebody else do this because people don't run the business, systems run the business, and people run the systems. And you are so on your way and doing all of that and getting that written out. So kudos to you. Keep going. And yeah, thanks again for your time.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.